I know it's been a minute since I've been able to just sit down and kind of have a conversation and fill everyone in on everything that's been going on. We were down for Memorial Day weekend at Disney World in Florida, and I came back with a really bad sinus infection. I was sick as a dog for about 2 weeks. Then we flew out to Disneyland, and I came back sick again. And I was sick really bad for another 2 weeks, and now I'm in week 5 total of kind of being sick, and I'm finally doing a lot better. I just have a mild cough now instead of a constant cough. You've got to hate sinus infections and bronchitis. So anyways, today's going to be talking all about our Disneyland versus Disney World experience. So the first major difference that you'll notice when going to Disneyland versus Disney World, and if you've done any research at all, even when buying your tickets, you'll already probably know this, but there's only 2 parks instead of Disney World. There are 4. So at Disney World, you have, of course, Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot. Whereas at Disneyland, you have Disneyland, which is kind of their Magic Kingdom, which also has the Star Wars section from Hollywood Studios. And then you have Disney's California Adventure Park. Disney's California Adventure Park has a little section that's kind of like being in Hollywood Studios, but for the most part, it's not super similar. Number 2, the second difference with Disneyland versus Disney World is at Disney World, you have to ride shuttles or the Skyliner or drive to get to and from different parks. Whereas at Disneyland, the parks are directly across from each other. I do like them being across from each other a lot better than having to drive or shuttle, and it take anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes usually to park hop. Whereas at Disneyland, I can walk out of Disneyland and walk straight across to California Adventure Park. This was really nice. However, in my opinion, the only reason they're able to do this is because the parks are on a much smaller scale. So you only have 2 parks. 2 of them combined probably equals the size of Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. So you have half the amount of space that is needed. With that being said, I can see why Disney World isn't able to do something like that. You have to drive because they need much more space. But those are the 2 most noticeable changes that you'll see when visiting a Disneyland park instead of a Disney World park. The next thing is, if you are a merchandise person and you love being able to get the limited merchandise, this is so much easier to do at Disneyland versus Disney World. So back here, we have a couple of the things that we got on our trip this time. We have the Disney 100 Mickey Balloon Popcorn Bucket, the Snow White Poison Apple Sipper, and the Mickey Disney 100 Sipper. So these are all from the Disney 100 lines, but you would never find them at Disney World. Unless you were incredibly lucky, went the day that they started selling these products and probably waited about 7 hours in line, you would not be able to get your hands on these. However, and we are back. However, you can walk up to just about any of the carts or the quick stands or wherever they are selling limited edition merchandise at Disneyland and purchase it. They are not sold out. They have plenty. At least when we were there, they did. Whereas when we were at Disney World for Memorial Day, I was looking for the Disney 100 Cinderella carriage, which I have. It's upstairs. They were completely sold out. You couldn't find them anywhere. I didn't even see them offering the Apple Sipper or the Mickey Sipper there. They might have had them at Disney World at one point and then sold out. But at Disneyland, they had everything in abundance. I was able to buy what we wanted. And I guess this makes sense since Disney 100 is kind of based out of the Disneyland parks. Now, one thing I will say I noticed at Disneyland is the prices depends on which park you're in. So I believe we paid $32.50 for the Mickey Sip at Disneyland, but when we were over at Disney California Adventure Park, I'd stopped to get a Coke Icy, and I wasn't going to buy a sipper anyways there because I'd already bought one. But I happened to notice on their sign that a Mickey sipper was $36.50. So, and I'm so sorry about the dogs barking. Merle is having a fit in his crate. So when you are at Disneyland, one thing you're probably thinking about is at Disney World, you absolutely need a Genie Plus. Most days it is so crowded that it's really hard to get on any of the good rides unless you have the Genie Plus option. And sometimes you even need the Lightning Lane option as well for specialty rides that are not available for Genie Plus. At Disneyland, this is completely different. Yes, they have Genie Plus and they have Lightning Lane, but we found that you don't really need Genie Plus there. Lightning Lane, yes, for rides like Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, there's always going to be a long line and it is definitely worth paying to skip the line. But as for all the regular rides, we didn't really even use the Genie Plus option. By the time we booked a ride and had to wait to book another ride, it was quicker just for us to wait through the line. We actually, on day one, we did almost all of the rides. The park was not as crowded as Disney World. Obviously, it's half the size, so it can't hold as many people, but we just didn't find that it was necessary. The lines were not there. I think it's because, in my opinion, the attractions when it comes to the rides are nothing compared to Disney World, except for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. That's the same. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad, that is the same. Then you have Pirates of the Caribbean, which I will say is similar to the one at Disney World, but definitely the better ride. It's longer, it has 2 drops instead of 1, and it's just a little bit better atmosphere. So I will give Disneyland credit on that ride. It is better than the one at Disney World. However, the rest of the rides at Disneyland are either the almost exact same as Disney World, or they cannot measure up in any way. And one thing that really disappointed me was the Matterhorn bobsleds. That ride is supposed to be, from everything I heard, comparable to Mount Everest at Disney World's Animal Kingdom. There's no comparison. So it's about half the size and there are no drops. I wouldn't even really consider it a roller coaster. There's not really a thrill aspect to it. Mount Everest, you have the thrill of you're going up high, you're coming down fast, you're going backwards in the dark and partially sideways. You have a coaster where it ends and then you have to go from going backwards to going forwards. It's 100% a thrill. There's nothing like that to Matterhorn bobsled, which in its defense was the first ever ride like that, I think, in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was put in so long ago, I guess you really just can't compare it to Mount Everest. The next thing that is different between Disney World and Disneyland is how long it takes you to do stuff. As I mentioned, we did almost everything. Hold on. River, come here. I have a puppy trying to climb up the stairs. She's just now kind of figuring out stairs and she's pushing her boundaries. Anyways, so as I mentioned, we did almost everything at the Disneyland park in our first day. It wasn't something that took us very long to do, and by day 3 at Disneyland, we were bored. If you're really going to take your time to do stuff, you need about 2 days at Disneyland. Whereas if you're going to be a scheduled person like me and you kind of have an itinerary and know what you want to do, which I find is necessary at Disney World, you can do everything in probably a day and a half at the most. So by day 3, we were definitely bored. Day 3, we didn't ride a single ride. We just walked around, looked for characters, and left really early so we could get rest for our early flight the next morning, just because there wasn't enough there to keep us entertained. Now, over at California Adventure Park, if you're into all of the superheroes and all of that aspect, I'm sure that park is amazing. For Corey and I, we're not into the superheroes, so Adventures Campus was very boring to us. The only part of the park that I really found exciting at Disney California Adventure Park was the Cars Land. Cars Land is the best part of that park to me. It has the best ride, which is the Radiator Springs Racers, which if you pop over to my last video that I posted the other day, you'll be able to see us on that ride. That ride's amazing, completely worth the not Genie Plus, completely worth the extra Lightning Lane charge. It was exciting, it kept you entertained, and with using Lightning Lane, we waited less than, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes to get on that ride, even though it had over 100-minute wait. As for the rest of Disney California Adventure Park, it just wasn't super entertaining to me. There was the Incredicoaster, which was the best ride that I rode probably the entire time we were there. Anyone that knows me personally knows I do not do anything that's upside down. I had never been on an upside down ride before in my life. Terrified of it. I'm terrified of heights already. So for me, just the like roller coasters is amazing right there. But I was so bored at Disney California Adventure Park and like seeking some kind of thrill that I talked myself into doing the Incredicoaster. Found out that going upside down for a split second is absolutely nothing. I had a blast on that ride. It was the best ride we rode. Since we had Genie Plus, we used the Genie Plus on it just so we didn't have to wait in line. But oddly enough, to be what I consider the best ride that we did between Disneyland and Disney California Adventure Park with the most thrill, it only had about a 30 to 45 minute wait without using Genie Plus. So if you're not, wanting to just rush through the lines and you're like me and you've got plenty of time, save yourself a little bit of money and just go for it. Now, as for California Adventure Park, how long we spent there, we actually did the entire park in one day. We got there a couple hours later. We did not get up early on this trip, which is something I'll talk about in a minute that's different from Disney World. We did everything in one day, and then since we left Disneyland early on our last day, we went back over to California Adventure Park just to do the Radiator Springs Racers one more time because we enjoyed that ride. Now, as I'm talking about getting up early at Disney World versus Disneyland, Disney World, we get up at about 6 o'clock in the morning and are going from the time of rope drop until anywhere from 9 to midnight, depending on the Disney hours at that park that we're going to that day. Typically, we park hop. We will start out at Animal Kingdom because they usually open up earlier, spend half our day there. Once we can park hop, we'll shoot over to Magic Kingdom and stay until close at 10, 11 o'clock or later if there's a special event going on. That was not something that was necessary at Disneyland. We did not get up before 9:30 California time every single day we were there. Some days we didn't even get to the park until 11 o'clock. And then by closing, we still were kind of bored, or we would leave before the park closed at midnight. I think we only stayed until closing at Disneyland on the first day we got there. And let me mention that we flew in and we did not get to the Disneyland park until about 4:30 in the evening. That was day one, and we did almost everything that we wanted to do on day one from 4:30 in the evening until they closed at midnight. Now, had we wanted to rush around a little bit more and I hadn't have had a bug fly in my mouth and nearly make me throw up because I swallowed a gnat, we probably would have rushed around and just done everything else that we wanted to do and then just had nothing to do on day two. So it really doesn't take that long to do all of it. And it's not just because of the size, it's just because the crowds are a lot lower at Disneyland than they are at Disney World, except for at the fireworks. Our last night, we watched the fireworks and we got a spot about an hour early and it was jam-packed and a nightmare getting out of there. That is the only time while I was there I felt like I was at Disney World because the crowds were just absolutely insane. Now, I don't say all of this just to down Disneyland. I completely respect that they were the first park. It's more of a feeling of being there than it is a ton of activities to do. For me, I feel like Disneyland is probably better for if you have kids than just for adults going. I'm absolutely so glad and grateful that we were able to go and that we were blessed enough to have the opportunity and the means to be able to fly out there from Georgia all the way across the country to California and go to Disneyland because we are huge Disney fans. But the thrills with the rides just weren't there for me. Now, this is where I'm going to say Disneyland beats Disney World, which is something I bet you didn't think at this point you would hear in this video. And that is with the characters. Oh my goodness. The characters at Disneyland are amazing, and you don't have to wait 2 hours to meet them. At Disney World, you have to track down where the characters are at on the map, figure out the times they're going to be there, and try to get there before the time so that you're not waiting in line forever. However, at Disneyland, they have some characters like Mickey, Minnie, princesses that are at very specific places and that you meet them at specific times. That's great. But they also have a ton of roaming characters and characters that you would never dream of meeting at Disney World. While we were there, we got to meet some characters that I would consider to be pretty rare, especially since we're used to Disney World. Some of those characters included the Evil Queen, the Mad Hatter, the Genie, and Captain Hook. That was an amazing experience. We never really thought we would get to meet those characters. The Genie is available at Disney World, but only at the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. The other characters I don't think are actually available to be met at Disney World anymore, with the exception of, I believe, the Evil Queen you can meet at the Snow White restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, so I'll insert it here. But you can meet her, I think, in some of the Seven Dwarfs at that restaurant. But as for just out in the park, you're not going to meet her at Disney World at this time. So I did love being able to meet those characters. I also love that they were just wandering around the park. You just had to run up to them, stop them. You could get an autograph. You could get a picture. That was really great. We also saw Geppetto and met him, actually. We also saw a couple other characters there, like Pinocchio. We weren't able to get pictures with him and autographs because he was headed to get ready for the parade. But still, it was a character that you wouldn't normally see out at Magic Kingdom at Disney World. So that was really nice. So another difference comparing Disneyland and Disney World is the food. Disney World, I feel like, has a lot of strange food that I'm not particularly a fan of. I'm a pretty picky eater because I have a lot of allergies and a very sensitive stomach. So Disney World food just does not do it for me. There's a couple of places I like, but for the most part, I'm going to pass on Disney World's food. Disneyland, aside from the Plaza's dining package for the parade, that food was weird. I wasn't a fan of that. But the rest of the time we ate there, the food was really, really good. It was normal, something I could eat that I wasn't going to walk away feeling sick or feeling like I wasted my money. So I would definitely say characters are better at Disneyland. Food is better at Disneyland. Rides and amount of entertainment you have to fill your time is better at Disney World. Disney World with 4 parks, I feel like you need a full 7 days in order to be able to do everything without being completely exhausted. Whereas Disneyland, I would say if you want to take your time and do stuff, plan for 2 days at Disneyland, maybe 2 days at California Adventure Park. I don't think it would ever take me that long at California Adventure Park, but especially if you have kids, probably 2 days at each. But you don't need an entire week to go and do stuff there, or you'll end up like us and be pretty bored. Now, I will say, if it wasn't just Corey and I as 2 adults going to Disneyland, then we probably could have enjoyed it more through the eyes of kids, because I feel like Disneyland is more a park for kids. The rides, I feel like, are more suited to the children, whereas Disney World has rides for kids, but also rides like Guardians of the Galaxy that thrills us adults. I also feel like with all the characters roaming around, it gives you more of a real, like, being inside the world of Disney experience, where you could expect to just walk down Main Street USA and see Goofy and Minnie and Pluto and Chip and Dale and, of course, Mickey Mouse. So that, I feel like, is great for the kids. I would love to see more of the character experiences at Disney World like I saw at Disneyland. And one last difference I'm going to mention, I'm sure I'll think of more things that are different down the road, but this is just off the top of my head. Photo experiences. They have characters, but not a lot of people taking photos. So it makes it pretty hard to get really good photos unless you're lucky enough to have a camera with you or a phone that takes really good pictures. They don't have professional photographers with most of the characters. We were lucky enough with Mickey a couple of times, with Pluto, and I think a couple other characters. I can talk, to have professional photos taken. But for the most part, we had to take them with our cell phones. If you're me and you just like having, Corey and I in the photo together and not individual photos, this is really hard when you have the characters roaming because there's nobody roaming with them most of the time. So you just have to take your own photos. So unless you're wanting to take a selfie to get everyone in with the photo, then you're going to have to take photos one-on-one with the characters and then swap out. Overall, though, I'm very grateful for the experience. If we had never been to Disneyland, I would not know all the differences between Disney World and Disneyland. Like I said, for me, 10 out of 10, I will be going back to Disney World. Of course, we have annual passes. Many, many more times. I don't think I will be going back to Disneyland as much as I love being able to say I have the experience. If I lived closer, yes. But for me, for what the park is, it's not worth me paying to fly all the way to California and have to take, more time off work for a park that just doesn't have as much in it. Whereas I can fly down to Florida in an hour and a half, or I can drive in 6.5 hours, maybe 7, and have enough things to keep me jam-packed for 3, 4, 5 days, and then itching to go back and do it again. Which we're already doing because we will be going back to Disney World for my birthday in August, and then we'll be going down there again for Labor Day in September. And then after that, I'm not sure if we're going to go down at Thanksgiving or not, or if we're just going to go down on our honeymoon, which is after Christmas, but we'll see. But my main point is, with Disney World, it gives me the thrill of wanting to go back again and again and again. It's that feeling of when I am walking down Main Street, USA, and seeing the castle. Oh, and another thing, I'm going to say what every vlogger who probably has compared Disney World to Disneyland says. The castle. The castle at Disneyland is phenomenal. Cinderella's castle, you just cannot beat it. It is larger than life. It's just amazement. When you walk in that park and you see that castle, it's just a feeling of happiness that I cannot even explain. At Disneyland, we have Sleeping Beauty's castle. I was excited about that because when I was growing up, Sleeping Beauty was my favorite. However, I have a dog chewing my toy. However, when I compare the size of Sleeping Beauty's castle and Cinderella's castle, it's like this. Cinderella's castle is huge and bold and amazing. Sleeping Beauty's is just a lot smaller in size, but that also makes sense since it's an older park. And we're back. I want to say it was 2 videos ago. It was the first video I posted about being at Disney, and I got Corey's reaction to the castle, and he was just like, it's tiny. And that is very true. I wish I would have gotten my look at the castle on video, but I was busy filming and I didn't have the camera on myself, but I just remember going, let's take a look at the castle. And then I walked over to where I knew I'd be able to see the castle from, and I saw it and I went, oh, it's small. And that's the funny thing about when you were talking to cast members at Disneyland and they knew that you had been to Disney World, the first thing they would ask is, what do you think of the castle? I guess that is the most common comparison you're going to get of Disneyland versus Disney World. But, River's moving the camera. But to come to the defense of Sleeping Beauty's castle as an OG Sleeping Beauty fan, I will say there is one thing that Sleeping Beauty's castle has Cinderella's castle beat on. And that is the fact that you have to tour the castle. At Disneyland, you're able to go through a secret passage and tour the inside of the castle, and it's like you're going through the story of Sleeping Beauty. Whereas at Cinderella's castle, it's amazing when you go inside, but the only way you're able to do that is if you're eating at Cinderella's royal table. And for people that go that have kids and they're going to Disney on a budget, sometimes paying $60 a person, or I think it's $35 or $40 for kids per child, just is not reasonable for a family on a budget. It's not a family-friendly price when it comes to eating. So I love that everyone's able to walk through Sleeping Beauty's castle and get that experience, whereas not as many people might be able to go to Cinderella's royal table. While Corey and I have been lucky enough to eat at Cinderella's royal table before, I'm not sure that it's something we would pay to do again, just because it is a bit pricey. Well, I could go on for hours and hours and hours talking about our Disneyland trip and our Disney World trips, and I don't want people to think that I'm a Disneyland hater, because I'm not. I did enjoy my time there. I loved the characters. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the experience. However, it's just not something that for me I would repeat, simply because of the distance it is to get from Georgia to California, and because the ride thrill factor just wasn't there for me personally. If you're not super big on rides and thrill factor, and you don't mind that you're going to be traveling further for a park that's not quite as big, then go for it. I think everyone that is a Disney fan should go to Disneyland at least once. But I do see why people travel from all over the world to go to Disney World in Florida. Now, I do have to say, I do want to try more of the Disney parks. I want to go to Disney in Tokyo. I want to go to Disney in Paris. I want to try all of the Disney parks as well as do the Disney cruise, just for the experience, because we are huge Disney fans. We love Disney. We love everything that Disney's about. I love how it makes you feel like you're a carefree child again. When I walk through the gates at Disney and start walking down Main Street, USA, all of my cares and worries in the world always just seem to melt away at my feet. And that is a feeling of Disney magic that you cannot compare. So now that I have rambled on for longer than I expected, I'm going to let you get back to your day, and I'm going to get back to my day. I have someone coming to pick up a rooster. I need to collect and stamp eating eggs. I still need to give 2 dogs a bath and tidy up this house and fix dinner. So I'm going to get back to my busy, crazy life, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.